Rating more of your Euro Fantasy drafts with the first game only a few days away. A lot of these drafts are very, very close, but still need a few tweaks. So thanks again to everybody that sent through their drafts. And again, if I haven't done yours, trust me, a lot of these teams will resonate with yours, so it will provide a lot of value. As always, make sure you drop a like on the video and of course, smash the subscribe button for daily Euro Fantasy content. Enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So first up, team sent through here from Gino the Red, and it's a decent team. I think there are a few things that we can change though. First and foremost, in the goalkeeper area, I love Costa as a pick. I think at 5 million, he is the go-to keeper if you're not as keen with the likes of Jordan Pickford. But Lunin for me at 4.5 million is a bit of a risk. We have no confirmation right now that he is going to be the #1 goalkeeper for Ukraine. We have seen him at times play, but I think there is enough doubt to suggest that he isn't the best 4.5 million goalkeeper. I think if you're going for Costa, I think Verbruggen of the Netherlands is the better option for your teams, just for guaranteed game time, where we have had confirmation that he is going to be the national team's #1. So that is the first change that I would make, Lunin to Verbruggen, if you want to keep that 4.5 million goalkeeper. Now, moving into the defenders, Schlotterbeck in that German defence. I think coming closer to this Friday kickoff, Mittelstadt will start at left back for Germany, and saving that 0.5 million is really important when we're trying to budget teams. So I think Schlotterbeck right down to Mittelstadt is just going to give you that little bit of enabler to invest elsewhere in this team. I don't really see the value of going for this man. DeMarco, I love having a piece of that Italian defence against Albania. However, I do think Albania might be a trickier game than we are giving them credit for. But again, I think we do need a piece of that Italian defence. Look at the rest of the picks. We've got the 4 million Wout Face. More than happy with that. It looks like he will start for Belgium. And again, at 4 million, just very difficult to ignore a player that's offering great value like that. We've got a 6 million defender, in Virgil van Dijk. I think the Netherlands are a good investment this tournament. However, if you go towards maybe the Verbruggen pick in goal, you kind of have that coverage in the Netherlands defence. So I would argue maybe taking a look at changing Van Dijk to Cancelo. I think the combination of Costa and Cancelo, double Portugal defence, would be my preference over double Netherlands defence, just because of the tricky fixtures that they have in their group in comparison to Portugal. Finally, Fabian Schär, I think he's a nice pick actually for the Switzerland team, but again, tricky group stage for him. I would say maybe if you want to, change that to Mark Guy at 4.5 million, just to get a piece of that England defence if you want to move away from that tricky group for Switzerland. Now, moving into the midfield, of course, we do have two premiums in this team, and that has had to mean sacrifices elsewhere, but I don't mind the combination. Jude Bellingham at 9.5 million and Bruno Fernandes at 9 million. Those are the two standout players in this midfield, which has meant you've had to sacrifice in other areas. But to be honest with you, I think there are enough enablers in the game for you to go down this route. I think Jorginho at 5 million, he isn't going to light up the world, but he can do okay for ball recoveries. We're expecting him to be on penalties, so I think Jorginho's absolutely fine. And Rodri, we know, is a very similar player. I probably would just argue playing for maybe a better team and maybe a higher goal scoring threat from open play. But for me, I think Bellingham and Fernandes is absolutely fine, but I would implore you maybe just to take a look at downgrading one of those. Probably would recommend Bellingham, even maybe down to a Bukayo Saka. Free up that 1 million in the team, maybe just to upgrade one of Rodri or Jorginho. But otherwise, I think the balance of the midfield is absolutely fine. Gundogan, for me, I do prefer Florian Wirtz. I think Musiala at 8.5 million is a bit too expensive. So if you can squeeze that 0.5 million, Gundogan to Wirtz would be my choice. And looking at your team here, you have captained Harry Kane. You need to change that to a Germany player to ensure you get a player in that first game. So whether you change your captaincy to Gundogan or Wirtz if you do make the transfer. Finally, the forwards. Kane and Mbappe, I'm not going to talk about. I can't really make a case against them. Dovbyk, I think, is great. I think he's an awesome forward for our teams. Going to play for Ukraine, we expect, on penalties. And he's had an okay time of it, but he hasn't been as free scoring as he was for his team in La Liga. I like it. I think Ukraine's group's good. But again, I do have a preference towards Kai Havertz if you can get him, just to have a captaincy option for match day 1. But otherwise, I think this squad's really good. I would probably lean it more towards 7.5 out of 10, just because naturally going for 2 big midfielders means you sacrifice elsewhere in the team. But with those few changes, I think you could have more guaranteed game time in the players that you selected. Moving to the next draft, thanks again for sending it in. And again, I think this is a really decent draft with some nice differentials in this team. So again, Pickford and Costa, I do like it. However, I think 10 million spent on goalkeepers is quite a lot. I'm not a big fan of going for 5 millions. And as I mentioned on the previous draft, if you have to change it up, I probably would recommend maybe just doing Pickford down to someone like a Verbruggen at 4.5 million. I don't think you can do Costa down to Verbruggen because Verbruggen and Pickford play on the same day and you do not want that for match day 1. Now, there are some nice midfielders in this team. We've spoken about DeMarco, I think is a brilliant pick already. Mittelstadt is in this team. Again, I really do advocate people having Mittelstadt in their team, and it's similar with Wout Faes. The two that are interesting here, Frimpong of the Netherlands. Now, he's one of the most owned players going into match day 1, but I also think there is a huge doubt about his game time. Benched in the most recent friendly, however, did come on, done well, but also Denzel Dumfries done a great job. There's no guarantees what the Netherlands are going to do with their formation, especially after the injury to Frankie de Jong, which is going to rule him out of the competition. That might force the hand for a slight change in this system. So we are going into match day 1 a little bit uncertain about the minutes for Frimpong. And because he's 5.5 million, that is enough for me to move away from him at the time recording. If the manager comes out and gives us guarantees that maybe he plays right wing or right wing back, brilliant. I think he's a great option. But you do need to understand the risks if you are going for Frimpong. I think there is a slight problem. If you want to change it, Theo Hernandez at the same price, I think gives you that guaranteed game time in that French defence, even though the fixtures, you'd argue, are a little bit more difficult. Now, the one that I really do like the look of, and to be honest with you, I haven't really considered it myself, is going to be Sylvain Widmer of Switzerland. Scored in their most recent friendly, playing almost as a wing-back in this team. And we know the Swiss team is a decent outlet. They've done well in previous tournaments. They hold a good account for themselves. And the two fixtures in match day 1 and 2 is going to include Hungary, followed by Scotland. I think that's some good fixtures. I think Hungary have had a fantastic qualifying campaign, but I wouldn't put it past Switzerland getting a result there. And Widmer, if you offer some attacking potential as well, is being really overlooked. So I like that inclusion. And again, I wouldn't really change that. I like the route that you're going for and the different group that you're targeting. Now, midfielder-wise, Shaqiri is in my own personal draft. However, he will be making way. And that is because of the recent news from the manager who suggested that Shaqiri cannot play 2 games in 4 days and can't even really play 90 minutes. And that is a big red flag for me when I'm looking at owning players, when particularly there are other options out there, like Turkish Çalhanoğlu, who is going to have guaranteed game time on penalties as well. So I probably would look to change Shaqiri maybe to Çalhanoğlu just to have another 6.5 million midfielder in this team. But also Arda Güler at 6 million is a great pickup if you want to go for maybe a bit more of an attacking player. Szoboszlai, more than happy with that inclusion. Rodri is a great player. Bruno Fernandes basically appearing in every single draft. And the man that I cannot pronounce for the life of me, Georgians Kavasked, we're going to just put the first part of his name in this video. Cannot pronounce him for the life of me. Hey, he's a talisman in that team. Are Georgia going to do well? Probably not. But if they are going to score a few goals, he is going to be the man behind it. And I have no arguments going there at 7 million. I think he is a really nice differential in the game. And as I said, sometimes going for the same players can be a little bit repetitive. So I would almost say to managers who haven't got him to take a look at him. I'm not against it at all. I think Shaqiri is more of the priority for you to change in your team. With Kane, Mbappe and Lukaku up top, once again, I think Lukaku is one of the most overlooked players going into the tournament with 14 goals in the qualifying stages. So again, the forward line is fantastic. My major concern in the team is that you've got Mittelstadt as your captain in match day 1. You have no German attack. For me, that'll be a priority. If you can free up the funds to maybe change Shaqiri to a Wirtz, then I really do like this team. And you could easily do that, as I mentioned, by maybe downgrading Pickford to Verbruggen, using the 0.5 million to upgrade Shaqiri. And if you could find an additional 0.5, then changing that to Florian Wirtz. But otherwise, I think this team's really well balanced. I love the inclusion of Lukaku. I would change Frimpong though until we get guarantees of his minutes. Moving into the next draft here, and I would probably say, and I do apologise, Shia Sully 09, this is the one that will need the most work, but let me explain. These are the drafts that we need in these videos because it really does give a bit more detail and information. So first of the goalkeepers, I could not honestly sit here and tell you that either goalkeeper is going to start in match day 1. We have had confirmation that Sells is not the #1 goalkeeper for the national team. So straight away, that is a 4 million goalkeeper that needs to change. And I've already spoke about my worries for Lunin in match day 1 as well. Once again, I don't think he'll be the #1 goalkeeper for his national team. So straight away, you might have 2 goalkeepers that are going to get 0 minutes. I think that needs to change. You need to move Sells to a Verbruggen, and I probably would change Lunin to a 5 million goalkeeper. Or if you want to go to Turkey's goalkeeper at 4.5 million, that is also an option for your team. So goalkeepers 100% need to change. Moving into defenders. So first and foremost, we need to understand with Euro Fantasy that it's really important to play the players that are kicking off earlier in match day 1. So for example, as you can see what has been done with this team, Mittelstadt is on the bench. However, he plays on the 14th of June. You have other defenders like Van Dijk who are kicking off on the 16th of June. If you were to play this team and save it and the first game happens, if Mittelstadt gets a hat-trick from defence, you can't sub him into the team. So you really need to make sure that you start the players that kick off earlier in match day 1 and bench the ones like a Bruno Fernandes, for example, who play later on. Then, as the match day progresses, you can sub those players in for the ones that didn't perform to what you expected. So a little tip there you do need to keep in mind. So defenders wise, again, I can't really argue with the inclusion of Van Dijk and Mittelstadt. Perfectly fine. For me, Castagne is a player that if you can afford it, do it. But I also say to you, Wout Faes at 4 million is very difficult to argue. But again, Castagne is always going to give you a bit more of an attacking outlet. So again, I would only say change Castagne if you need to free up the funds. Double Italian defence is interesting. Di Lorenzo and DeMarco for match day 1 are fantastic. After that point, I'm not as inclined to go there just because the fixtures are difficult against Spain, for example, which I would not really want a piece of that, and even Croatia in match day 3. But maybe you're on the strategy of using both your chips in match day 2 and 3. If that's the case, I think double Italian defence is great. Otherwise, I'd prefer changing Di Lorenzo to maybe a 5.5 million Theo Hernandez or even a Mark Guy at 4.5 million to get yourself a piece of that England defence. Now, moving into the midfielders, double England midfield is brave. Bellingham and Foden with Harry Kane up top. Must be an England fan, this person. But what I would say is this, I don't mind it at all, but I would probably just go for one. I think there is enough uncertainty right now on the positioning of Phil Foden to make him lesser of an option in this team. We don't know if he is going to play at number 10 with Bellingham in the side, but equally we don't know if Bellingham's going to play a little bit deeper to accommodate Phil Foden. Because of that reason, I definitely would get rid of one. Probably I would sacrifice Phil Foden and I would look to change that to a Bruno Fernandes that you already have. So that could include you downgrading Phil Foden maybe to a 7 million like Xavi Simons in that Netherlands team. But if you want to keep him, it's absolutely fine. But I would just say to you, there's a little bit of uncertainty about that positioning. And I think having both might be a bit overkill. Maybe even just going for Bukayo Saka because you know he definitely will play off the right. Love Fernandes, love Rodri, love Wirtz because it gives you a captaincy option in match day 1. The big thing, this front line. Harry Kane is fantastic. No denying that whatsoever. Dovbyk, we spoke about his value. I really do like that as well. But Retegui, in this Italian team, no guarantees that he plays. I am not a big fan of this choice at all because I think there are so many other fantastic options available in the game. So for me, that forward player needs to improve, and there are multiple players that you could go towards. If you could free up enough funds, let's say you were to downgrade Phil Foden to a 7 million midfielder, you might be able to squeeze that up to a Kai Havertz, which I do recommend for this team. That would be a much more of a preference. And as I said, you could downgrade Castagne to Wout Faes, give you a bit more cash to go elsewhere in the side. I am not a big fan of that 3 up front, especially when most managers are going to have Kane, Mbappe and Lukaku or Kai Havertz. Not having any of those is a little bit of a worry for this team. But again, if you want to be different, I'm not against it at all. Just be cautious that those managers are going to have the option of captaining Mbappe in that game week when you don't have that at all. So That is the big change for me, getting Mbappe into this team, or at least an alternative like Kai Havertz or Lukaku. I don't think you can go without those main 3 or 4 if you are going to swing against Mbappe. So few changes to make in this team, but I like seeing things a little bit different. Next up, team sent in by Lewis, and he has the goalkeeper combination that I have been talking about, Costa and Verbruggen. Again, I'm not saying it's the best combination, but I do like it because it gives you a piece of both teams. So more than happy with that goalkeeper combination. The defence is really interesting. So look, we're not going to talk more on DeMarco or Mittelstadt, great options. Fabian Schär, we've spoken about. I think he's good in that Swiss team because the fixtures are quite favourable as well. So I'm not against Fabian Schär at all. Grimaldo in this Spain team. Now, he definitely could start, and maybe I have missed some quotes, but I do see those Spanish fullback areas being quite competitive. And I haven't seen anything to guarantee the game time of Grimaldo. Now, I do apologise. If I'm incorrect there, maybe I've missed a quote, then ignore this section. But for me, Grimaldo is a bit too much of a risk. And I would argue that the fixtures for Spain aren't even that incredible to justify investing in them. With Croatia in the first game and Italy in the second, that doesn't say to me I need a Spanish midfielder. So I personally would be looking to maybe change Grimaldo. He is 5 million. I'd probably go down to a 4.5 million like Mark Guy at England. I think the fixtures are better, and I think it means it frees up funds elsewhere for you to upgrade your team. So Grimaldo down to Mark Guy is probably my preference. And we spoke about Frimpong at the start of the video. I need guarantees, I need assurances that he's going to start for Netherlands at 5.5 million because it is a lot of your budget. Otherwise, go to Theo Hernandez, or if you can squeeze it, go up to a Van Dijk if you want that guaranteed game time in the Netherlands defence. But we'll monitor the situation, and if we do get news on Frimpong starting, then of course he becomes a fantastic option. Moving into the midfield, some interesting picks here to say the least. Wirtz, can't complain with that at all. Bruno Fernandes, a big fan. I love the next 3. Xavi Simons, I think, is great. I'm expecting him to start in this Netherlands team. I don't say he's a free scorer, goal scorer, but has scored in the most recent friendly, in great form for his club team. Hopefully he can change that for his international team as well. So big fan of Xavi Simons at 7 million. I think more people probably do need to take a look at him. Leandro Trossard as well. I'm expecting him to play for this Belgium team. He is quite pricey at 8 million, but does get you a piece of that attack if you don't want to go for Lukaku at 9 million. So Trossard I also think has been quite overlooked, and the fixtures for Belgium are actually quite favourable. Slovakia in match day 1, Romania in match day 2. I think Trossard's going a bit under the radar, and I do like him as an alternative to Lukaku in those teams. Unfortunately, the one that I don't like is Eze. I love Eze as a player, but there is no way he starts in match day 1 or match day 2. For that reason, Eze does need to come out of this team. Now, at 5.5 million, I think that's a good enough value for you to go to a decent player. I can't justify you paying that in this team. You do a few things. You could downgrade into Jorginho, free up 0.5 million, or if you could find the cash, maybe upgrade Eze to Turkish Çalhanoğlu, get yourself some guaranteed game time on penalties and okay fixtures. But I don't think you can put Eze in your team, but I love the rest of the midfield. Now, up top, again, same old story. Kane, Mbappe, Kai Havertz, no complaints whatsoever. Captaincy on Havertz, you do need a Germany attacker to give yourself an option on day 1 of match day 1. So I love the team. I love the differentials. I particularly love Trossard in this team, and I love Xavi Simons. But for me, Grimaldo can come down to Mark Guy. I think Eze can go to Jorginho or up to Çalhanoğlu. The rest of the team, I think, looks fantastic. I probably will put this at a 7.5. So the final draft of this video, and it's finally going to include a certain Cristiano Ronaldo. Really surprising to see how many managers are going without him. So quite interested to talk through this team here, sent through from Top Football 2007. So goalkeepers, Costa, we know I love him. Lunin, we know he's a risk. I will be looking to change him, as I've previously discussed in other teams. In terms of the defence, first inclusion for Theo Hernandez. Now, he's currently in my team. I think he's a good pick at 5.5, but I do also think the fixtures are quite difficult for France, even though they are one of the tournament favourites. Austria in the first game, Netherlands in the second game. Poland's the one where you want him in match day 3, but I know a lot of people are using their chip around that period. So Theo Hernandez, great at 5.5 million, but do just note the 2 fixtures are the toughest for France. Grimaldo I've touched on. I don't think that's a good investment of money unless I have missed something. Going down to someone like a Mark Guéhi, or just go sideways to Italy's Di Marco would be the route to go for. Double Germany defence is interesting. I haven't looked at it myself, but with Scotland in the first game, I don't mind it. Tar at 4.5 million is a good investment. He will start alongside Rudiger. Mittelstadt at 4 million, a great pick alongside Wout Faes. So don't mind the defence at all. Obviously, there is a little bit of an absence from the likes of Cancelo or Van Dijk, but I think that's good. Little money in the defence probably is the route to go for a lot of teams. Moving into midfield, so we've got the double cheapies of Jorginho at 5 million and Rodri at 6.5. Rodri probably is emerging more of the favourite 6.5 now that obviously Shaqiri sounds like he could be a little bit of a minutes risk. Çalhanoğlu also in your team at 6.5 million. Really do like that combination of the three. Cheap, but offer guaranteed game time on penalties, all three of them. Don't mind it. Musiala is the one that I'm a little bit up and down about. If you can afford it, and clearly you can in this team, I actually think you should go there for a bit of a differential pick. But again, at 8.5 million, is he worth 1 million more than Wirtz? I'd argue no. But again, if you're going for cheap enablers around him like Jorginho, Rodri and Çalhanoğlu, I think Musiala is worth your investment, especially to be your captain in match day 1. But if you want to free up the funds, I would say to you, my first place I would go is downgrading Musiala to Wirtz. Give yourself 1 million, maybe to improve a Çalhanoğlu or a Rodri if you need to. So I like Musiala if you can go there. And of course, Bruno Fernandes, you know I am a big fan of him in these teams. Just offers everything in terms of returns, great fixtures, and just a good tournament team. And up front, as we spoke about, Kane and Mbappe don't need to talk about, but you've squeezed Ronaldo in this team, which I really do like. Now, is he going to start the first 2 games? I think he definitely starts one. Will he start the other is the big question mark. And it is a risk that you're going to need to take. But what we know from Cristiano Ronaldo is if he is available to play, he probably will force himself in that team. And he is probably going to prove a good differential as the game progresses to match day 1 deadline. I think more people will move away from Ronaldo than go to him. So I really do like this team. I think there's some changes. Looney needs to come out. Grimaldo needs to come out. And then it's a case of whether you think Musiala is worth the additional 1 million. If you do, with those small changes, I really like this team as a bit of a differential side. And it's great to see Ronaldo in a draft. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Yes, guys, okay, that's going to wrap up today's Rating Your Team video. I'm hoping this isn't the last one, so if you do want your team rated and haven't done it already, please do fire over on Twitter. You can do it on FPL Nacho. I will try and do one more video before that Friday deadline. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please do consider dropping a like and smashing that subscribe button. We're doing daily Euro fantasy content until the end of this tournament. I can't wait to do it, to be honest with you. So thank you for all the new subscribers. Hopefully, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great day. Cheers.